Hello, welcome back here in CAYDEN'S WEATHER CENTER. Right now, today is September 1st. We're still paying attention to the tropics here. And as we continue with the tropics, we are currently seeing that low pressure system still sitting in the northwestern Gulf of Mexico. We are as well as seeing a tropical wave still sitting over here in the MDR, heading into the Caribbean here in the next couple of days. Then a pretty healthy tropical wave coming off of Africa right now. Our main focus will be on this tropical wave right here, though. We'll touch on the northwestern Gulf of Mexico low pressure, and we'll definitely keep an eye out on the one that is off of Africa here. But right now, the National Hurricane Center, we can clearly see for the northwestern Gulf of Mexico, a very broad area of low pressure has been located off the Texas coast here, and we're keeping an eye on that because we could see a possible formation, and that's why the National Hurricane Center does have this out, because the longer it stays over water, the more favorable environment there is, the more likely we could be seeing a small tropical storm, maybe even just a tropical depression, possibly make a landfall here in the United States as we go throughout the next couple of days. Heading into this one over here, 20% chance. This one was over. I believe this was overnight here. We have Disturbance 3. This is for a tropical wave that is coming off Africa as we speak right now, and the environmental conditions here could support some slow development as it moves off to the west-northwest over here in the next couple of days, and that's what the National Hurricane Center is saying. Our main focus right now is this tropical system right here that is out here in the MDR, is east to the Lesser Antilles, and we're going to keep an eye on this as it continues to push off over here to the west and could possibly impact the Yucatan and parts of Central America here, and possibly even Jamaica. That is something that we're also going to be paying attention to, but regardless of development, we're going to see heavy amounts of rainfall sitting right here in the Lesser Antilles. So this storm is very, very unorganized, and if we take a look here on the IR satellite, very unorganized of a system here. You can see there's thunderstorms obviously on the western side of the storm here, but we can clearly see it's just not looking at all very, very impressive. So that's something to be paying attention to. Heading into the true color, you can clearly see there is some convection that did blow up a little bit this morning, starting to die down with the convection blowing up. So a little bit of an interesting situation that the Hurricane Center will definitely be paying attention to is these little thunderstorms that we saw earlier this morning. We're not seeing as much right now. So it's something to be paying attention to as the storm continues to move off to the west and possibly head into the Lesser Antilles probably in the next day or two. Heading into the water vapor, we can clearly see that the reason why the storm is, keeps getting pushed back here of the, where it would form. Dry air still sitting here in the Caribbean right now, in the Eastern Caribbean. Dry air is off to its west, to its north, to its east. We're seeing a lot of dry air in different places that is kind of choking off the storm, and that is why it looks so unorganized and all of that. But what I want to say, though, no matter what, we still see some very hot waters here in its path. 30 degrees Celsius here in the Caribbean that we can clearly see as the storm continues to move off to the west here. It will possibly be heading into possibly maybe even 31 degrees Celsius in some of these areas right here. But then a little bit when you come off of the coast of the Yucatan, a little bit cooler waters here, a little bit of a cool down for the water temperatures. But then once it gets in the Gulf of Mexico, the question is, does it continue to drive off to the west here? Could it get pulled off to the north a little bit? We'll definitely have to keep an eye on that, as the models have still been changing a little bit, but you can see 31 degrees Celsius in this hot pink area. This is a very, very dangerous situation when it comes to tropical systems heading into these deep hot waters as well. It could become a dangerous situation for any tropical system, especially when a tropical system does get into the Gulf of Mexico. It has to go somewhere. So taking a look here at the anomalies, what we're anticipating, this is obviously, you can clearly see majority of this Caribbean, actually pretty much all of the Caribbean here and majority of the Gulf of Mexico are above average for what it's supposed to be at this time of the year. We can clearly see these little dark red spots. That's the coastline that definitely has a lot of hot water here, and we can clearly see even on Central or South America, and then parts of Haiti and Dominican Republic, we can see those hot areas that could lead into a pretty strong storm if it goes a little bit off to the north. So still big questions still on the picture. Taking a look here at the European tropical cyclone probabilities for a tropical depression here in the next couple of days, you can clearly see pretty high chances still continuing on right now here to the west of the Lesser Antilles, and as this continues to push off to the west here, heading into the 48, 96 hours, 72 to 120 hours, there's a tropical wave right here, or possible tropical development here by the European model right over here to the east. Obviously, our main focus is this one because it does have the possibility of becoming a tropical depression, and the chances keep going up here. And that's what we're wanting to pay attention to as it continues to move off to the west. Then we see it possibly head into the Yucatan here, We can see heading into Central America here, we can see that there is a little bit of orange. That means we're getting some pretty good agreement here that we could be seeing at least a tropical depression here, and then that will continue to push off over here. And if we take a look here at the European model, it'll continue to push it off to the west here, but the question is, the European model, the 00Z at least this morning, kind of had it turning back up to the north. So pretty big question here, obviously still on where this tropical system could go. Taking a look here at the ensembles over here in the next 72 hours, not seeing anything in the Caribbean yet. Then we can clearly see, a couple days ago we already had models heading just west of the Lesser Antilles. Now won't even form until possibly 4 or 5 days out right now here, according to this. Then we can clearly see not a lot of models really picking up on it until 7 days once it gets closer to Central America here, and we can clearly see it does, majority of the models do bring it over Central America, possibly even the Yucatan as well, and then brings it 10 days after. We can still see some models kind of bring it up into the Florida Panhandle as well, but majority of the models now saying it goes into Mexico. So that is at least good news for the United States here, but definitely I would say no matter what, the United States does need to be paying attention to this, because still we have some models, yes, bring it over here, but then bring it turning back and, even into Texas here. So some of these spaghetti models are a little bit, interesting to be paying attention to as we go on. So no matter what, right now, even though majority of the models bringing it into Mexico, we still need to be paying attention to it if you live on the Gulf Coast here. Right now, if we take a look here at the GFS ensembles, the GFS ensembles are kind of saying a little bit of a different scenario here. We can clearly see, obviously, no low pressure system forming. There's a low pressure, according to the GFS, over here in the next couple of days. By tomorrow, this could possibly be a low pressure system that will start to die down. Then we kind of see a little bit of a different scenario here in the Atlantic, but that will be for another video, talking about the other areas of interest. But taking a look, this is your date up here, September 6th. We can clearly see there's some type of low pressure models over here in the Caribbean. GFS ensembles kind of keep it off to the west. Very, very weak of a system here. And just like I said in the past couple of videos, the more weaker the system is, the more south and west it will go. And the more stronger the system is, the more it will get pulled off to the north. So something to pay attention to, because it all depends on that intensity. But you can clearly see the GFS ensembles. Yes, still has majority going into Mexico here in Central America, but still, just like the European model, still having some get pulled off to the north. It all depends on the intensity as well. So taking a look here at the GFS, we've been seeing this 12Z coming out right now here. Taking a look at the GFS, you can clearly see there's your tropical wave right there. Obviously not very impressive right over here on September 3rd, but did bring some heavy amounts of rain, possibly to the Lesser Antilles. Does have a little bit of a low pressure system forming here, 1,000 millibars by September 8th, nearing Central America here. We can clearly see that, and then we'll continue to push up to the west, and we'll continue to move into, we'll have to wait for the next hours out, but you can clearly see brings it into Mexico here. So we're starting to maybe get a little bit more of agreement here on the model, saying that there's going to be some type of issue where the storm cannot go. It does seem like we might be having a high pressure be building in over here, as we do have a front going to be coming down. High pressure will be building in, probably most likely right behind that, and that will cause these storms to continue to move off to the west here, and really will not impact anyone that could get pulled north, but that all depends. And we'll talk about the high pressures and all that here in a second here. The European model earlier this morning, we can clearly see pretty large amount of rain here with this tropical wave. Then we can clearly see, though, by September 5th, 1,009 millibars here. I would say if we go back to the GFS model here, if we head back to September 5th, it does seem like they are pretty equal here. Or I think the GFS, yeah, so the GFS is saying it's a lot more quicker, I would say. No, the GFS says it a little, yeah, the GFS says it actually is a little bit slower. The European model brings it a little bit more quicker, heading into Central America and parts of the eastern Yucatan here. Then heads off to the south here, and then really just dissipates. Something to be paying attention to. No matter what, the European does say that some heavy amounts of rain could head into Texas from this tropical system, but that all depends on how, if it heads off to a little bit more to the north, or if it heads off to the south. So something to pay attention to with the European model. Another model we always like to pay attention to here is the CMC model, the Canadian model. It's not one of our main models that we pay attention to, but it's something to look at here. And this one has been pretty accurate here on really just tracking the storm to the west. Pretty consistent on wanting to keep it headed into Mexico here. So we could just be seeing a western storm, and you kind of can see the reason why. High pressure is built in, and that's kind of blocking it from getting pulled off to the north here, as that's a pretty strong high pressure that we're paying attention to. And majority of the models are starting to agree with each other on that high pressure building building in. The ICON model saying, hey, Texas could be paying attention to that tropical system right there, but then it heads down to the south, which is a very interesting situation, I would say. But taking a look at the tropical wave, does continue moving through Central America, but the icon says it won't even form. But if you're curious on where it is, there it is, September 5th, so kind of agreeing with the European model on that intensity and the timing of it, as it will continue to push off over here to the west and really just won't impact a lot of people that are living in the United States, but could lead some land some mudslides and all of that here in Mexico, and probably some heavy rainfall if these models are correct here and we don't see any big change. But once again, high pressure builds in, and that's kind of why we're starting to see the little bit of a trend here heading off to the south of the high pressure, and that front will be coming down, I think, a little bit quicker than that. So taking a look at this though, what we're currently looking at here, this is the European model here, heading into the next couple of hours, or the next couple of days, we're seeing that high, we're starting to see some pretty big interesting patterns here over the United States temperature wise, and the possible high pressure. As we're starting to see it, there's that tropical system right in there. High pressure is kind of built over to the west, not impacting as much here. But then that high pressure will start to build in kind of over here. That kind of blocks it in over Texas. That cold front is still trying to come down over here, kind of just in Georgia and all that. So the cold front will be bringing itself down. The question is if this storm moves very slow here, it's obviously going to not. It's just going to continue to move off the west because the high pressure will be building in quick enough, and then the front as well. But then you take a look a little bit off to the Euro. This is where we see a little bit of a different scenario, because there's that storm. High pressure is not as strong now, so we could be seeing something, but still I would say the European model does bring this in, possibly turning, and could be something to pay attention to, as you can clearly see that little blue dot heading into Louisiana. But right now it all depends on that high pressure that builds in, as we can clearly see September 9th here, the storm right here off the coast of the Yucatan in Mexico. We can clearly see that. Question is, does it continue moving off to the west, all depending on how strong that high pressure is. If it finds a break in that high pressure, it could get possibly pulled up to the north. Right now, most likely the issue will be it will get pulled off to the west here, but just in case, due to the European model still kind of saying a little bit more of a northern turn, something need to be paying attention to. But right now, most likely we're going to see a little bit of a different scenario with the models. And the first video that I started talking about this, we've seen a little bit of difference now, as we're really paying attention to the high pressure expected to build in according to these models, and we're going to see it possibly move off to the west, and that seems like our most likely scenario right now. But no matter what, if you live in the Gulf Coast, you definitely need to be paying attention to this tropical system anyways. But just know, for right now, the majority of the models are bringing it into possibly Mexico here. So if you live in Mexico, maybe southern Texas, something to be paying attention to with heavy rainfall. We'll definitely have to keep an eye out, updated on the models here. Make sure to follow my X page down below in the description. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe here if you enjoyed the video. Just make sure you're getting your information from the National Hurricane Center or your National Weather Service. We're paying attention to the tropics as we're heading into the peak of the hurricane season here, but something to pay attention to with the model. But I just want to say, focus on the updates, because we could be seeing a little bit of flip-flopping here with the intensity, but as of right now, we're not expecting any possible big hurricane according to these models right now, but could be impacting Mexico here, which could be the most likely scenario. So make sure to stay updated, and I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and bye-bye.